Welcome back, YouTube Pipe Smokers. This is Spurgeon Piper. This is Wilson with you. So today's topic's a bit different from my normal, and I'm covering how we can retain information that we read better. How can we read better, simply? Um, so for some of you, you maybe you don't read at all, and this really doesn't pertain to you. And some of you simply only read things like novels or um, other pieces of literature where you're not really seeking to get information out of it. You're just seeking to read it for enjoyment only, which is great. I think that we need to do more of that, really. But what I'm covering here is for those of us who are reading to retain that information, to use it for ourselves or in discussions and etc. Um, I'm a pastor, and so I am reading a lot. I'm also reading a lot for my graduate education or seminary education, and so um, I'm not simply reading for enjoyment, though I usually enjoy everything I read, but I'm reading to retain information, to use it for myself and for those I pastor and others. So that is needs to be a goal of mine. So here's some steps that and some tips I have that I've had to learn because I used to struggle greatly with this. I used to read a lot more than I do now, up to like 50 books in a year. And I gained a lot out of doing that, but I realized after a while, boy, I'm really losing out on how much I could keep in all of this that I'm reading. And so I stopped and I started working in myself with, okay, we need to kind of revamp things. I need to refocus on what I'm doing and not simply read to get done with another book. So these are some things I learned that have been helpful. I'm still trying to practice even myself to retain what I read. So let me go through some of them for you. I'm going to be kind of using some examples out of a book I'm about to reread that I've read several times. I use as a reference a lot, and it is The Mystery of Christ, His Covenant and Kingdom by Sam Renihan. Tremendous book. This is one I'm going to be covering with some guys in my church here soon, and going over and working through in the near future. So I do recommend this book, by the way. Tremendous book. So let's get into it. Number one is is one that's obvious, and that is just highlight and underline. Um, if you're in school, whether it's high school or um, post high school education like college, you know this. You underline and highlight things in your textbook, right? That's what we do. We highlight things that are noteworthy that we need for a test. Well, pull that and use it still. Highlight and underline. Uh, that itself is going to help your mind focus on, okay, that is important and I need to retain it. I need to kind of jog it into my brain. It stands out, and that's going to be helpful itself. That's an easy one. You probably already know this, not significant. Number two, going along with that, is just make notes. And so I highlight, I make notes, I star things, and there's some other areas where I actually write in questions. What did the author mean? Or I use sticky notes, and I just write things in the sticky notes for uh, further inquiry and kind of searching on where he's pulling from, things like that. And so work with the author, wrestle with the text that you're reading, and again, this is trying to use the book as a conversation piece with yourself. It's another individual who you're working with in a way, and so see it that way, not simply something to draw from, but something you're interacting with. Making notes helps with that and helps stick it in your brain even further. Um, Number three, I would say, is just reread that chapter. So you got done reading a chapter. I'm not encouraging you to just simply read the whole chapter again, though that's great, but reread your notes, reread the highlights, the sentences you underline, etc. Um, there's a reason you probably underlined them. Go back and reread them, and that's just a repetition that will help you gain or retain that knowledge. And then kind of like a 3.5, or maybe it's just point 0.4, reread the whole book. This is one of the biggest things I did that helped me retain information, is where I struggled with I'm going to get done with this book and go to the next one. I tried to work with patience and go, okay, let me get back with this book and let me start from chapter 1 and go forward and reread my highlights, reread my underline paragraphs and sentences and things like that, and rework with it again. It doesn't take as long, of course, because you're only reading what you highlighted. It depends on how much you underline and highlight, but uh, I want to seek to retain that information again, and hold on to it. And so that itself was helpful, quite significantly. Um, Number 5 would be one that was more recent discovery, and there's actually a study that was done that proved how helpful this was. When you get done reading for the day, you read the book, you read some pages, don't look at your phone. Don't go off and read another book or do something else. If you have the time, sit there for 5 minutes. Ideally, close your eyes and just sit there. Maybe you're not even meditating on what you read, but just simply sit there. And it sounds weird, and it's something we probably do. We have a hard time doing because it's like, well, I got to go do something else. But the research showed that those who just sat there in quiet, ideally in the dark or without any distractions, they were able to retain and memorize that knowledge for further use. And then so they were actually in this study, they were actually tested on what they read compared to uh, the another group who went off and did normal things that we usually do. And those who sat there quietly were able to remember far more uh, than the than the normal other group. So definitely use and that's probably going to be one of the hardest things for us to do is, hey, sit there and not do anything else, not look at my phone. That's difficult because we always are oriented to go into something else constantly. So recommend that, use it, and lastly, I would just say if you have someone you can interact with them, like read with someone, talk about it. That has been another helpful thing is having someone nearby. Um, Even if we're not reading the same book, we're asking each other about the topic, and it makes us draw out what we're reading. This is one thing that's helpful with pastors or those who write a lot, is when you put pencil to paper or to your typing, and you have to draw out that information. You're going to It's going to help you work with it. It's going to help you meditate on it and have to put it into words where it just stays in your mind easier. You're able to explain it better. So those are tips I encourage you to do. Be a better reader. Reading's obviously something everyone would say is good to do, but let us seek to be better readers. Something I'm trying to do, work better at myself. So I hope those are helpful. And if you have any other recommendations, leave them below because we can use more recommendations for being better readers. Uh, Guys, I hope you're doing well this week. And Friday I should come out with another review. So until then, I hope you take care. We'll talk to you soon.